Let's just jump right into it. Today, we're unpacking a chilling narrative in this explainer that completely blurs the line between a medical outbreak and, well, pure, unadulterated supernatural horror. We're looking at the case of a freezing, totally isolated mountain village that was suddenly cut off from the rest of the world. And we're going to trace the terrifying escalation of an event that literally defies all scientific logic. By looking at the timeline and these chilling firsthand accounts we've got today, you'll see exactly how an entire community just vanished right into the freezing dark.
Okay, let's dive into this with the absolute crux of our mystery. Do not wake them. Now, this terrifying warning, it wasn't found in some dusty old history book or an ancient manuscript. No, it was discovered hidden directly beneath the feet of the people actually living in this village. So keep this phrase in the back of your mind as we go through the timeline, because pretty much every single horror that unfolds here stems directly from the failure to heed those four simple words. I mean, how does a community wake something they don't even know is sleeping beneath them, right? Part 1. A village cut off. So to understand how things went south so incredibly fast, we really have to look at the environment. A violently destructive storm swept through the region, totally decimating the surrounding forest and blocking literally all the roads in and out. So they're trapped, right? Trapped in the freezing cold, surrounded by destroyed wilderness, completely isolated. And that's when the residents noticed something unsettling. It started with scratching sounds in the walls at night. But listen, this wasn't just a nuisance. Almost immediately after these insidious noises began echoing through the timber of their homes, people started dying. And it wasn't a slow, creeping illness either. It was sudden, brutal, and absolutely terrifying. Just imagine sitting there in the dark, totally cut off from the world, listening to the walls of your own home moving with this unseen presence, knowing that very sound is the precursor to a horrific death. Part 2. The Hantavirus hypothesis. Now, faced with the terrifying and the unknown, the village doctors desperately sought a rational answer. Human instinct, right? We want to explain away the terrifying with science. So they confidently diagnosed this sudden wave of deaths as hantavirus. And on paper, it makes total rational sense. You've got a violent storm that destroys a forest. That naturally displaces the local wildlife. The rodents, desperately trying to escape the freezing cold and all the destruction, naturally seek shelter inside the warm houses of the villagers. So the rats invade the homes, bringing a deadly infection with them. It's this clean, clinical explanation for both the scratching in the walls and the sudden fatalities. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the massive disconnect between that clinical diagnosis and what the victims were actually experiencing. The doctors are pointing to standard viral transmission from displaced rats. But the villagers, their reality was an absolute visceral nightmare. Every single victim, right before they began violently coughing up blood, claimed they saw pale figures crawling upside down across their ceilings. Look, a virus doesn't cause you to see pale entities crawling around your bedroom. So the official medical explanation was rapidly breaking down in the face of these impossible, truly horrifying symptoms. Part 3. Beneath the school. Enter a young teacher named Saad, who flat out refused to accept the official story. Because, when you're trapped in an isolated, dying village, you can either accept the comforting lie or dig for the terrifying truth. As we can see on this timeline here, he realized the scratching actually had a focal point. After the violent storm destroyed the natural barrier of the forest, the scratching and the deaths began. This led directly to Saad going rogue with his own investigation, where he uncovered an abandoned, forgotten underground bunker hidden right beneath the local school. And the exact moment that bunker was breached, the village was hit with a total electrical blackout. It's this perfect chain reaction of disaster, really proving that the storm didn't just push rats inside. It unearthed the barrier that was keeping something locked away. And when Saad actually got inside this underground bunker, what he found completely obliterated that whole hantavirus theory. The room wasn't just a rat's nest, it was a literal catacomb. He found thousands upon thousands of rat bones just piled up in the dark. And even more chillingly, old warning signs written in stark red paint. This proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the village was dealing with something way older and way more sinister than just a simple modern virus outbreak. Whatever was happening, it had happened here before, and the ancestors of this village had tried desperately to bury it. Part 4. The Sown King Awakens. So, on the night the timeline mentioned, the entire village lost electricity. Imagine the pitch blackness of a frozen mountain. Suddenly, the scratching wasn't just in the walls of a few infected homes. It erupted beneath every single floorboard in the entire village simultaneously. Just a coordinated, deafening swarm of sound. Driven by pure terror, Sod actually followed the deafening sound back down into the bunker, bringing us right back to this horrific, tragic irony. Do not wake them. The storm had inadvertently shifted the foundations of the mountain, breaking the seal on the bunker. The village's fate was sealed the moment the forest fell. They hadn't just caught a sickness, guys. They had woken the very architects of it.
And what Sod saw at the center of that bunker is the stuff of absolute nightmares. Peering through the darkness amidst a literal mountain of moving, writhing rats stood an entity. It was tall, roughly human-like in shape, but with these piercing, glowing eyes. And most horrifically, and this is just wild, its entire body was physically stitched together from the corpses of dead rodents. This was the entity the villagers unknowingly referred to as the Stone King. It wasn't an animal. It was this grotesque amalgamation of death animated by something entirely unnatural. As if the visual horror wasn't enough, the entity actually spoke. Surrounded by its sea of rats, the Stone King whispered to Sod in this terrifying chorus of broken, overlapping voices. It said, "We carried the sickness for centuries. Now we carry you." I mean, wow. This single sentence fundamentally shifts our entire understanding of this outbreak. The sickness wasn't a disease the rats were suffering from. No, the sickness was a weapon they had held onto for centuries, just waiting for the exact moment they could pass the burden on to humanity. They weren't just infecting the village, they were harvesting it.
Part 5. Into the mountains.
Let's fast forward to the grim morning after the blackout. When rescue teams finally navigated the destroyed forest and breached the isolated village, they didn't find survivors or like a standard medical emergency. They documented a complete, chilling silence. So the crucial point is, every single house was entirely empty. No bodies, no survivors, just a massive trail of bloody footprints leading directly out of the village and straight up into the freezing, desolate mountains. And overseeing it all, millions of rats, just sitting there in the destroyed trees, acting as silent, unmoving sentinels watching the rescuers. They had done their job. The village had been claimed. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly unsettling realization. The Stone King said, "Now we carry you." We have an entire village that literally vanished into the mountains, leaving only blood in the snow, watched over by an army of silent rodents. The outbreak wasn't contained, it simply evolved and mobilized. So if the village is empty, and the stitched monstrosity is now using humanity to carry its ancient sickness, where exactly are they marching to next? Definitely keep that question in mind the next time you hear a faint scratching in your walls late at night. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and remember to always keep questioning what lies beneath the surface.